I'm not doing the countdown clock. I'm not doing any intro music. I am doing, let's talk about the comics. Let's get in here. Let's have good times. So
yeah, let's not pretend that this show has ever been in any way professional or planned or.
Well, I mean, you'd think now that we're doing it once a month, we got all this time to prep. We got all this time to design a structure.
Somehow I still did the thumbnail this morning and just finished reading the comics 5 minutes ago.
And I got in here backstage like 2 minutes ago. So
it's like just the old days all over again.
But welcome to Book Club, gang. White Whale Comics and I doing this once a month to look back at the books from the month that were most significant to us. And we're cheating a little bit because the book we're going to talk about first technically came out today, but we're going to lump it in as the read of summer that we can get into. But yeah, White Whale Comics. Alec, how you doing?
I mean, I live in Florida, so you know.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Wild. But hey, you know, it's the U.S. in general these days. We're joined by a guest on my West Coast. Jennifer, how's it going?
It is going better than Florida, I guess. So
I mean, that's not saying much.
It's a low bar, but it's, you know, yeah, that's I'm used to live in Florida. That's part of the reason why I left, but you know.
I mean, I just claimed the West Coast was mine a second ago, so we're all just a little buck wild, I guess. Let's say hello to people who've been waiting for the show, because there were a few people expecting me to be on time, and shame on them, really. Ruben Guzman, how you doing? Always early in the chat. The guy who is responsible for my aching sore everything right now, because his weekly Wednesday Earn Your Comic Books hashtag, where he posts an elaborate system of exercises you do so that you feel good about going to the shop because you got your exercise in. I am very sore. So thank you, Michael, for that. Got Jennifer down below and in the chat. The links to her channel, which, I mean, your channel blowing up. Congratulations.
It just hit 1,000 subscribers several days ago. So thank you. Yeah, part of that 1K club. Now I just need to get watch hours time. But yeah, thank you.
You got the famous Bueller bump, much like I did.
I did. Yeah, correct.
And me too. I think he had to give it to me twice because it wouldn't stick.
and I have to say, if you are watching something on myself or John's channel, so if you are in the chat tonight, if you're taking the time to watch our channels and you're not watching hers, you are doing YouTube wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, I've watched your shows, and I'll take that as a compliment.
I'll just choose to make it a compliment.
You'll take it as a compliment, but I feel
whether it's meant that way or not. No, I'm just kidding.
That's how I'm going to think about it, because it just makes me feel better that way. Because the alternative, right?
Yeah.
JP's right. How late will John be? I was from a Zoom meeting for work right into this, so I'm right on typical time. Listening at the drawing board, Jay Hood, much appreciated, my brother. I hope you really enjoy it. Wrong show. I mean, it could be the right show. We have a guest. So what do you mean
with this crew?
There could be more, and that's why you have to watch. There could be more people that show up. We don't know.
I mean, yeah, you just never know. Usually I just throw the link out to a whole bunch of people, but I knew what we were going to talk about tonight, and I made sure to get the Rom V Superstar fan on the program.
Yeah, it was almost like it was your idea.
Perhaps.
Me?
No, I suggested you come on tonight.
So it wasn't even John. The veil has been lifted. I thought John liked me, but I guess not. So thank you.
Well, to be fair to John, when I suggested it, John jumped at the chance of inviting you. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll send her a message." I was like, "Okay."
There was some leaping involved. Sure.
Okay.
What's up, TJ? Nice cowboy hat. H Live, what is up? Hope you got some good books this week. Perry, how you doing? He's watching a ton of horror films because he's preparing to drop a ton of reaction to horror movies all through the next October month into the spooky season. Buck wild, right? Everybody wants things to be buck wild with some WAP. Get some WAP in here.
Ooh, we're always talking WAP.
Thunder House Design, what's going on? C. Woodard, thanks for coming by, Carson. Appreciate it, man. Okay, so we are all caught up in the chat. I want to talk about Laila Starr. The final issue dropped this week. I got all the foils, so I have yet another cover that does not appear well on camera. Usually we give a quick feel about the book and a score, and I usually like to go last. I'm going to go first. I loved this book. I thought there was just a beautiful ending for me. I really we talk a ton about books that can't find a good ending. This one worked really, really well for me. So I 9.5 out of 10. I mean, I'm tempted to go higher, but I just really loved it. So,
question in the chat: are there spoilers? Yes, this is a full spoiler show. If this is your first time joining us,
yeah. But most of the books we talk about aren't dropping today. They're like older,
except for this one.
Just this first one. All right, Alec. What are your thoughts on the ending to Laila Starr?
Yeah, I agree. It was really, much like the series as a whole, very poignant, very honest, very heartfelt, without seeming like hokey and This Is Us-y. Like
not too saccharine.
Well, what I mean by that is that it didn't feel like it was doing it for the sake of eliciting emotion. It was doing it for the sake of telling the story and like just kind of giving you some insight into another person's perspective on life and death. It wasn't like, oh, I'm telling you these stories about people dying to make you upset or make you cry or make you feel something. It's like if you feel something, that felt like it was a side effect of the story and storytelling. So if any of that made sense.
It totally does. Sorry, I was giving H. Lyle a little note because he's put us on mute. It totally makes sense, and I totally agree.
Series as a whole, definitely like 9.5 out of 10. This issue right up there too. I can't wait to get like a hardcover of this and reread it front to back. I mean, I could just open my issues, but who does that? Like once it's bagged and boarded, like that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Versus TJ, that like once it's bagged and boarded, it's still not in his collection.
Yeah.
Okay, Jennifer, I've been waiting to hear how you felt about it.
I think that if I mean you I have loved this series from the absolute beginning. I got an advanced copy of this before it came out and read the first issue and was like, this is my favorite story of the year so far. There were a couple of stories that started and maybe have also finished in the same time frame that I was like, okay, maybe it's a contender for being my favorite story. But now, having read this 5th and final issue of this series, hands down, it's my favorite series of the year. This book was like damn near perfect. Like I can't think of anything that I disliked about it. I loved everything from like the lettering, the colors, the artwork, and of course the writing. Ram V is one of my favorite writers right now. I am not one to like pull out single issues and reread it again. Probably not going to do this with this one, but I would if I did do that. Definitely going to pick up like whatever hardcover, whatever paperback, whatever omnibus, whatever the hell comes out. This book, hands down, favorite series of the year, 9.5. This will be the book that it tops every single list of mine, for sure.
Yeah, it's this year's Little Bird, except.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like as. This is gonna sound wrong, but let me explain. I'm not as excited about it as I was about Little Bird. Little Bird to me was just like there was something about it that really kind of was so thrilling to me in the way it was told and the artwork and everything that really, and I kind of exaggerated my enthusiasm of it for the sake of the bit, but it really was my favorite read that year. And but yeah, this I agree is definitely is that for this year. It really took me on a journey that another book has not done for me.
I don't know about you, but Little Bird in a way reminded me of Saga, where I felt those moments of like heartbreak and as well as that like edge of my seat. Like that's what I felt in Little Bird, and it's the same thing that I felt for Saga. And I don't know necessarily if I felt that for this, because I feel like the stakes were never as high for Laila Starr in this book or any of the characters, but it did, like, this book was magical and transformative and bombastic and whatever. Yeah.
It's much more subtle and quiet, but I don't, that doesn't take anything away from it. Like, it is just told differently than something like A Little Bird, but it is like existential stuff, like talking about like the meaning of life and like what it means to live a life and what death means and all that. Is like, that's just totally my jam. So yeah, I mean, this is right up my alley for sure. And like you said, the art's incredible. The coloring is just so, like, really, it really grabs you. Yeah, it's just so lovely in every page. So yeah,
I mean,
I feel like
I don't know how to like follow you guys. I think you guys hit every nail on the head there. And I will also say, I remember a writing teacher saying something like, an ending should feel like it fits, but also be like you don't expect it, right? And I feel like I kind of knew how it had to end. Like, I feel like I knew how it kind of had to end, but I could not have predicted it to the extent that it played out, you know?
Right. I mean, I assumed she wasn't going to kill him. Like, that would have been too straightforward. I knew that he either wasn't going to invent immortality or wasn't going to, you know, in the case of how it turned out, wasn't going to use it or share it with the world, because that would be too easy. So, but I wasn't really sure what was left, and what was left was exactly what it needed to be.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Agreed. Before, there was another book that was it, Haha, the ending of Haha, Haha. And it does that like existential, I don't want to say existential dread, but that like, what's the meaning of life? And it's all about perspective. And if you had told me at the beginning of last year that during like this worldwide pandemic that we're in, that I would enjoy a book that explores what it means to live and what it means to die, I'd be like, screw you, man. Like, that sounds miserable.
That's the last thing I want to read.
That's the last thing I need to read while we're facing this. And here we are, a year and a half into the pandemic still, and a book about life and death is exactly what I needed to read. So
versus
Romney,
Alec, who was clearly saying, like, if you spit that out to me, I'm like, let's get it, let's pick that up.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah.
Every time a book about
it's
life
in his
and death.
wheelhouse.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So, I mean, I don't know what, I mean, obviously it's going to be something that we're all talking about when it's like books of the year and how we feel about it, and how it ranks up there with the best stuff we end up reading this year. I mean, I kind of feel like I want this question at Jennifer, but maybe in general, I feel like Ramvi is working a ton and doing a ton of different comics these days, and now helping out Al Ewing on Venom.
Mm-hmm.
Is the guy, is he going to end up one of those guys that stretch so thin that the quality drops off?
I personally don't think so, because we've seen writers like James Tynion, who I feel there are incredible books. Department of Truth is incredible. Wind is incredible in its own way. I haven't been keeping up with Batman, but I hear it's good. And then, you know, another book that we'll talk about, Nice House on the Lake, is, I think, fantastic. So I think that there are books that are like up here, and then, you know, maybe Ram V will end up saving this to make this better. But I do think that Ram V is an incredible writer, and I'm not sure if, I mean, maybe that's just me giving him a lot of credit where it's due, but I don't think that I could imagine their writing drop. I think that they would put love and care and maybe hate and misery and perspective into everything that they do. And I'm here to read everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's kind of a hard question to answer, right? Because it really depends on the individual and how well they do with something like that. Because someone like James Tynion, like I tend to enjoy his creator-owned stuff, but I don't really or haven't really cared too much for his like DC Universe stuff as much. Which apparently I heard he's leaving DC to only do
Apparently.
creator-owned stuff. So good for him. And then we got Jeff Lemire, who just like pumps out 1,000 books a month, and like 90% of the time I think he crushes it. But then for my money, someone like Brian Michael Bendis, who when he started out was doing like a lot of really great stuff, and then he started writing 30 books a month, and I don't care about any of them anymore because
that's just my worry, and I don't, and it's clearly individual, right? Like,
sure, that's exactly my point. Is that like I think it's going to have to be a wait and see sort of situation, because he might have Ron V might have the bandwidth to be able to do something like that, but we won't really know until. I mean, the proof's going to be in the pudding, I guess.
And Kirkman and Vaughn also being writers who put out a ton of work and are pretty constant.
I also like, and James Tynion might be a bad example of this because I've talked to him a few times, and he's clearly very passionate about the DC universe and the lore and all the history of that. But I feel like a lot of writers must just save their best stuff intentionally for their own stuff, and they're just like doing a lot of the other work for a paycheck. But not that they're like intentionally crapping on things, but like
Yeah.
I'm sure like, oh, you want to write Wolverine for 6 months? Like, yeah, I guess. But I have this idea that's been rattling around in my head for my own thing that I'm going to spend way more time on.
Yeah.
Because you can put it at a pace that you feel, right? You don't have to put it out when it's not ready, versus being on
deadline,
that Wolverine where you're like, it's every month, or in some cases twice a month. You're pumping that out. All right, I didn't want to bring us too down. Okay, so obviously, yes, we are recommending everybody pick up the trade if you haven't. If you can find the single issues, read it. You're really in for a treat. So I don't know how we can promote Laila Starr anymore.
It's kind of funny that we started this conversation by saying, "Oh, yeah, it's a full spoiler show," and actually didn't talk about the plot of the issue at all.
I mean, do you want to? Do you want to get into it?
I don't think we have to. Just if you haven't read it, go read it. If you've read it, you know what we're talking about.
It ends strong, so let's not spoil a huge ending for people, but it ends really strong, so don't miss out.
It's only 5 issues. It's not gonna, it's not too much time out of your day to read it.
It is a Boom Studios, which means probably you're not seeing a trade till Christmas, but
Hey, Merry Christmas though.
Yeah.
Right. There you go.
And that's, if we'll get one for Christmas, I'm hoping, because this is going to be one of the most, I think, like gifted books that I recommend or that I give to people, as well as recommending like a book as a gift. However, there's a really big paper shortage right now, and a lot of publishers.
Everything shortage.
Yeah. A lot of publishers and distributors are saying, hey, retailers, you need to know what you're going to order for Christmas. Like, you may need to know what you need to order in November. Right now, you need to know what you need to order like this month or next month in order to get it, in order to order enough of it. So if you do want this book, I'd highly recommend going to your local comic book shop and pre-ordering, because that's going to be the way to get books as gifts and book for yourself. So
yeah. Totally. Or, try to find the back issues. I don't think any of them are really money books. I don't think anyone.
If I'm not picking them up, I'm trying to like hoard all of them.
Little clusters of them.
I was going to say, you're little birding it.
Yeah.
So I think I have like 12, 13 copies of issue 1.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on. And we got you guys brought up Tynion, so let's try out that Nice House on the Lake. So this is for you, H, in the chat. We are going to be discussing Nice House on the Lake issues 1 and 2.
Oh, not 3.
But not.
I mean, you can discuss 3. I don't have it yet. So, but feel free to talk about it. I don't care about spoilers.
So I went first last time. Alec, you want to go first this time? What are your thoughts overall on Nice House on the Lake? Issues 1 and 2 that started.
So I came to the party a little late because much like most books at my shop, it sold out before I could get a copy of the first print. So I got subsequent printings of 1 and 2.
Which I love the slowly deteriorating
Yeah.
paperback book style.
It's like it was burnt, so you can actually see this isn't the this is the first page of the book.
Yeah.
But it's not actually the first page of the book, it's on the cover. So I didn't really know what this book was about, but obviously there was a huge hype around it. And judging by the title and the cover, I thought it was just like a creepy cabin in the woods style, like
horror comic.
People trapped and running away from a killer. And it is not that at all. And that surprised me in a really good way, because as much as I love slasher films and like that kind of genre, I was like, there's not really much more to do with that genre from what I've been able to see in the last few years for people trying to do that.
Well, it's incredibly simplistic and repetitive. So at some point, if you're reading 10 issues of something, you're going to be like, okay, I get it. Like, she's still running away from the killer.
I don't mind to interrupt, but you've read Maniac of New York?
I have not.
Not necessarily that I think that book by any means reinvents the wheel when it comes to slasher, but I think that it's an interesting take on it, and puts them in New York, which I think is interesting. So
much better than the Jason film when he takes Manhattan.
I'm not even joking. My mom's neighbor directed and wrote that movie.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, you went to film school, so that's not surprising.
Well, I mean, it's always the, like, whenever that movie comes up, I'm always like, I know that guy.
That's pretty cool.
It's not high on his like resume or anything. But.
So yeah, it was a pleasant surprise what the story actually is, which I think we'll get into the story of this, but I won't start that conversation quite yet. I will say I found it interesting that there was so much, which it makes sense where the story goes, but there's so much emphasis on introducing each character in a very deliberate way, but doing it in a way that didn't slow the story down. Like, they still kind of weaved it in very well.
Because there's a lot of characters in this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's 12, I think, right? He said there's 15 rooms and 12 people agreed to go. I will say that, like, for some reason, it made me think it felt like a video game, kind of. There's a game called Until Dawn.
Yeah. Yep.
Which I played a couple years ago, and what it is it's a very narrative game, but you're playing this series of scenes of these characters who are in this ski lodge, and they're trying to survive until dawn because there's this killer on the loose. And the way the game works is that the decisions you make and the reactions that you take actually affect the story. So you can get to the end with basically no one surviving or everyone surviving or somewhere in between.
Like a choose your own adventure kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Sort of, except the choices are kind of made for you based on your decisions. Like, it's not like so hard. Yeah, but it's more or less that. And for some reason, I got that kind of same feeling. It was like, here's the cast of characters. Who's going to live? Who's going to die? Who's going to turn out to be like the troublemaker? Who's going to turn out to be the hero? But like, here are your players.
Which avatar are you going to play as, right?
Yeah.
All right, so score for these two issues. What are you thinking?
I really enjoyed them. I like 8.5, 8.8. Not quite a 9, but up there. Solid B+.
And Jennifer, what are your thoughts?
I definitely agree right there with the scoring. I would definitely say probably a solid 8 out of 10. I think that I wish that it did. Sorry, let me go back a little bit because I'm trying to think of just issues 1 and 2 without issue number 3, without getting too much into it. But hey, Scott, I really I like the premise. I'm really surprised that this is a DC book, and I wish that it was not a DC book. Like, I understand that it's Black Label, so I feel like there's a certain amount of expectations that I have going into it. Like, maybe I'm like, where's the DC tie-in other than maybe some of the books that we saw in the background on issue 2? Because one of the characters goes into a library and you get to see like Sandman, and you get to see like a couple other things, other DC books.
Yeah, I didn't really put it together at the moment, but because, you know, there is Sandman. I was like, well, that's clearly Sandman, and it's the correct font. But then there's a bunch of books that say Love and Explosions instead of Love and Rockets.
Rockets, yeah.
And I was like, well, why didn't they just use that title? But then I was like, oh, right, because this is a DC book and they own Sandman and they can just use that without asking anybody.
Yeah, yep.
It's a Vertigo book without the Vertigo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So rest in peace, pouring out for Vertigo. But I really enjoy it. I like this like horror mystery. And the one thing that I haven't found, maybe this is because it's only on issue 3, but I haven't found like the character that I identify with, and I'm kind of sort of waiting for that, because the thing about the book is that it's the mystery of the book and the mystery of the universe is unraveling as we're going along, and we're doing that with the characters, right? And a lot of times that's done in a way where we feel sympathetic towards a character, or we feel like I identify as this character.
There's a point of view that you can acknowledge.
That you can put yourself in their shoes. And I haven't necessarily done that. And I have a feeling it's going to go back to that point where like all of these characters are just really shitty people, and they're just horrible people. We're not going to identify with them. And sometimes that's done whenever they kill someone at the end. So I don't know if that's just me and my expectations of the book. So that's probably, it says more about me than it says about the actual book, which is really good. And I like the mystery of it. It's one of the most solid DC books, and it's weird calling it a DC book, even though it's Black Label, but here we are in 2020.
Now, as we said before, I don't have issue 3, but the first 2 issues, the first couple pages are kind of like introed by a different character. Right. Is that, I assume the 3rd issue is the same thing. So is it a 3rd character that intros the 3rd book?
Yes.
So, to your point about not identifying with the character yet, maybe we just haven't gotten to that character who's telling their part of the story. But I think it's a good point where like I kind of felt the same way, where there's so many characters. Like, I don't know who the main character is even. I don't feel like there really is one.
There really isn't.
Like I thought it was going to be the artist, because that's who kind of starts telling the first issue. Then the second issue is told by a different character. So,
and so I will say, scoring wise, I'm right there with you. I felt like issue 1 was my least favorite. I was putting that one closer to 8, versus I liked when we started getting glimpses of other characters and how they were perceiving this sort of cloistered environment where they just seemed really stuck, and yet some of them have been adapting to it, or at least trying to mentally come to terms with it. So I liked one more, like seeing them dealing with the situation than all the setup stuff. So the setup stuff was not bad. I just would have given that one maybe an 8, versus the later issues maybe more like 8.5, because I've liked that the character dissection that I feel like we're getting in the later issues. I mean, as far as mysteries, there's a ton of stuff here to dive into, questions and things. As far as a cast of characters, I think that they are many, but also I think even when they're just talking, you get a sense of character, and not just like one person talking, another person, nameless people talking. There's a ton of personality happening, especially when he spends all this time almost Hickman-esque with like symbology, right?
Yeah.
This guy's door, and everybody has their symbol on certain things in the house.
And like the case files, like there's like detective case files, or like transcripts. It does feel very Hickman-esque and reminds me of Black Monday Murders in a way, where it does like the interview transcripts. Yeah, exactly. So that stuff I felt like was really well executed, considering it could easily get bogged down or lost. And kudos to the artists who are able to help differentiate the looks of these characters.
Art's great.
Get us confused.
Art fits it really well, I think.
Right. Sorry, what were you going to say, Alan?
I was just going to say, I don't want to get like too deep into this, because we've had this discussion a number of times, but I just want to bring it up again because Jennifer, you mentioned that it's Black Label, and I think this is yet another example of how Black Label still doesn't know what its identity is.
Yes, especially because when I think about a book from last year that was Black Label, I think Wonder Woman Dead Earth, which was another fantastic book, but this is not like I'm waiting for Wonder Woman to show up, or I'm waiting for like Superman to show up, or something in the background. Like that's what I imagine with
If
Yeah.
Swamp Thing's somewhere,
yeah.
Jen's gonna find him. So
If Swamp Thing is somewhere swampy, I will find you because I love you so much.
So H is saying some of the same things as far as loving the issues, but dealing with the challenges of the characters and remembering who's who.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alec, you were gonna say.
No, I was just gonna finish up my thought and just say
Yeah.
like it. You know, when they first announced Black Label back in the day, like they basically said it's for creators to do what they want, and it doesn't necessarily have to tie into. But like I can't really think of many other Black Label titles that aren't property titles. But Jay Hood said something in the chat about how, or I think you highlighted it. Yeah, that the creators own this property and DC Hold knows right. So like, why? I mean, I know they don't have another, imprint to do something like this with at this point because Vertigo's gone. This wouldn't be a Wildstorm book. Even I don't think they're even publishing Wildstorm books anymore, right? That's dead. I don't know. I don't know why James Tynion decided to publish this through DC rather than Boom or something else. It's weird.
I could easily see this being a Vault book because Vault Comics has done a really good job with genre books, like that are books that are very horror or very fantasy or very sci-fi. And considering the horror mystery aspect of this, I could definitely see that. And thinking that Tynion is, he has a book with Image, he has a book with, is it Boom?
Yeah, Wind was on Boom.
Yeah. So I'm really surprised that this wasn't a Vault book, for sure.
I was gonna just show some of the art style for people that are unfamiliar with it. I'll a little bigger. So I think it's very like color minimalist in a lot of ways. Like they use color like specifically for differentiating hair or outfits, but like it's very muted backgrounds.
Like almost gray washed.
Yeah.
I think that definitely leads to the because for anyone who doesn't know, maybe this is a spoiler, it's a post-apocalyptic story. These folks are here in this nice house on the lake. They were brought there by someone that they went to school with. Yeah. And the rest of the world is facing a post-apocalyptic present. So it is a pretty gloomy book.
Yeah, right. So,
because they're stuck in this house in the middle of nowhere, and they're literally stuck because there is an invisible force field around the house, so they cannot get out. So we and they don't really necessarily know anything. Like they are finding stuff from Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that. But for all we know, it's all made up.
Well,
but judging from the fact that it is real, like going along with that assumption, right? That it is what is actually happening is real. They are told and they are under the impression that they are the last people alive. It is that everyone else on the planet Earth is dead and that they are the remaining human species.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of what I gathered from it.
Absolutely. And I wanted to bring up because there clearly are like conspiracy theory stuff built behind some of this, that like there's a group accomplishing this goal, but there's also supernatural elements because there's a sculpture in the garden area in issue 2 that they touch, and when they touch it, they get some pretty. This is when color just kind of. This is an amazing spread page.
Yeah.
They get glimpses of what's happening around the world. It's still going on. It's still occurring.
In issue 3, just to kind of speak about it briefly, in issue 3, I think it does a really good job of how people would respond to something like this, because they are put into this house that everything is there for them. They don't really have to think. Like they've obviously got like a huge library. That's where you'll be able to find me, in this house. And there's some people who are like, in issue 3, it really gets into like, we need to figure out what's going on, guys. Like, don't you realize the severity of this? And there are other people that.
Oh
no! Did her phone die? Jen.
She was about to make a really good point.
She's not even backstage. We lost you, Jennifer.
Oh no. Hey, there's
Sorry,
Jennifer.
I'm sorry. I'm back. I'm sorry that I'm back. So,
I've been there.
So basically what I was saying is that you have people who are responding it that are like, what the hell is going on? We need to figure it out. And then you have people who are like, relax. We've got like every single like movie we could ever watch. Like, let's just eat the food that's in the fridge and screw it. So very interesting to see that.
Yeah, I think that's that psychological kind of character element that is what I'm enjoying, which is seeing how they're responding to the situation and one another, which I find way more interesting than the plot is the like character stuff that he's been doing.
Yeah. And it's definitely set up that not only is everything they need there, but if they need something, it will be there.
Yeah.
Somehow.
And furthermore, the character who the supernatural character who's kind of set this up for these 12 people said in the invitation letter, which by the way, the people who go don't know what's happening. They think it's just one of their buddies who's invited them, and it turns out to be a whole thing. But he said like, oh, I've assigned you each the symbol, and you'll find stuff around the house that relate to your symbol that like is for you. So to your point about the characters who go to the library, who, you know, happen to find this, you know, weapons shelter beneath one of the bookcases. Yeah. Clearly that was left for the person he knows would have gone to the library.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see what other things are kind of, you know, like, is there going to be a Goonies situation where the guy playing the piano is going to play a certain series of notes and it's going to open something for him? And like, you know, who knows what other kind of secrets are going to unfold. And
absolutely. And then there are those supernatural elements where they're like having visions of
this guy who's like pretty creepy and really well
grotesque,
well imagined.
So yeah, as cool as the supernatural stuff is, I like that it's dialed down for the sake of the story so far, and even that continues in issue 3 as well.
But it did, like, it's worth the hype. I think there's a reason why people are excited about this book. It is really something kind of different.
Absolutely.
Did I hear that Tynion is taking a break with this one, like halfway through that, like issue 6, and then taking a break, or is that another book?
I hadn't heard that, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I thought it was a limited series, so I don't know how limited it is, but I didn't think it was like an ongoing.
I would guess, because of what I was saying earlier, that I was going to guess it would be 12 or 13 issues, because like I figured every character would intro an issue and that would be the whole story.
There you go.
I heard 12, but I heard that they're taking a break at the halfway point.
Yeah. Well, as long as they don't saga and it doesn't take another 3 years to come back.
Speaking of saga, can I tell y'all a funny story? So I went out yesterday to, there's like an ice cream shop, and they've got like pre-made ice cream sandwiches, and the person behind the counter had a saga shirt on, and it was the one where she's like chewing bubble gum and like reading. Yeah. So anyways, I'm like, oh, you read saga? Oh yeah, I read saga, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, sweet, like what volume? And he's like, oh, I just finished volume 9. I'm about to pick up volume 10. And I was like, sorry about your luck. But you know, we've been waiting for 3 years, my dude.
Yeah. But hey, I mean, maybe he is kind of lucky, because it's theoretically going to come back, or is at least being announced as to what's going on with it soon. So, you know, he didn't have to wait 3 years to find that. You might only have to wait a couple months, but
like, I'm going to be one of those.
Well, we'll have to wait longer for the trade.
Yeah, right. If he's only reading a trade.
I'm going to be one of those boomers like, no, you have to wait 3 years for it, since I had to wait 3 years for it.
Well, it similarly to a thing that I never talk about, Battlestar Galactica, where I was watching it as it came out, and during the season finale, with arguably like the biggest cliffhanger in the history of TV, as far as I'm concerned, they played an ad directly after the finale saying coming back next year, and it turned out to be like almost 18 months before there was another episode. And so anytime I show the series to someone, like, and they get to that episode, I'm like, well, you have to wait 18 months now to watch the next one because I had to.
Yeah. It enhances the flavor.
Make them wait. Saga is the new winds of winter. I mean, that's harsh.
Ooh.
That's harsh.
At least I'm not worried that Brian K. Vaughan and or Fiona Staples is going to die. Like, did anyone check on George R. R. Martin during the pandemic? Like, is he still alive?
I hope they just put him in a bubble. I mean,
Yeah.
really.
Maybe he's been secretly releasing it to us on his like live journal this whole time.
It's like, my other books are a jumble. You have to put together the next book by yourself. Good luck.
Yeah.
It's encrypted in code.
Yeah.
It's Post-its. It's just
It's on the back of the Declaration of Independence.
So obviously we're all going to continue reading this. Alec, are you going to get the individual issues? Are you going to wait for a trade? What are you thinking?
I'll wait at this point. Like, I've already missed issue 3. So, I mean, I'm not going to keep buying second prints.
Right. That makes sense.
I mean, I'd like to read it sooner than that, but I don't have who's got the energy.
Oh, the shop. And Jennifer, I'm assuming you're going to stick with it as well.
Yeah, 100%. I'll be picking up the A and B covers probably for every issue if I can find them. Yeah, really liked it. Added it to my poll.
Perfect.
Yes, there was a writer's strike at the time at Battlestar. That was like right in the middle of that whole thing.
Trade wait and show. Yeah, exactly. Into Battlestar, yeah. That was the same. Yeah. All right. All right, we have one last book to talk about tonight. And this is the Image Comics Scotty Young book, The Me You Love in the Dark, which is a really frustrating thing to type into a chat anytime. I've noticed when people are talking about it. It needs an acronym or something.
Yeah, you really can't do like TMYLD. Like it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long title. But Jennifer, why don't you go first? What were your thoughts on this one?
There were parts that I really liked about it. I identified with a young woman who likes to paint. As a young woman who does enjoy painting from time to time. I'm not good at it. Apparently she's really good at it. But needs to take a kind of like a break, and she ends up renting a really cool like old Gothic house in order to focus on painting. Basically just gets drunk the whole time. Totally related to this person. However, I feel like it needed to be coming from Scotty Young, who does such incredible, like whimsical but very serious work at the same time. For me, it needed to be pushed either into extra whimsical, where it falls into I Hate Fairyland, that's just a little bit outlandish, or it needed to fall into something more horror, more serious, like Nice House on the Lake. And it kind of fell in between there, which wasn't bad, but I really just feel like it just had been nudged one way or the other. It was still a fantastic book, and I would still probably rate this one a 7 out of 10, maybe a 6.5 out of 10.
It's interesting you brought up tone, because I feel like that was I couldn't decide, am I reading what kind of a book am I reading, and then what will I be getting when I get the next issue? But it didn't bother me, and one of the things that I liked about it is I feel like Alec and I always talk about like books that rush things, and what I loved about this book is it didn't care. Like it was taking its time. It didn't even really not like almost nothing happens in this issue.
Yeah.
And I liked the pace of it a ton, and the idea that like she basically sees the house on page 1, likes it, and then the rest of it is just her trying to do art in the house and trying to talk to a ghost that she thinks isn't there. And then little by little, she starts to realize maybe it is here. And that's basically the whole issue. Like there's nothing more. We don't even really meet the ghost. We just hear it. I like the pacing a ton. So that's what really won me over. And I read it a second time for the show, and I feel like I even liked it more the second time. The pacing worked even better for me. Score wise, I think you're probably right on the money, somewhere in that 7.5, 8 range for me. I think 8 feels fair. And I do like Jorge Corona's artwork, so I do like the way he draws the sequences. So I'm excited to maybe see where the tone goes in a second issue, but I'm not sold on the I'm going to read the whole thing yet. I just want to be I want to feel confident that they've got a consistent tone.
Yeah.
Alec?
This issue to me, I would liken it to the experience of chewing bazooka bubblegum. Where
That is not a compliment.
Where like you taste it and you're like, okay, that tastes okay, and then you're like, oh wait, no, this is already over. This is nothing.
There are so many ways that you could have done that like analogy, and bazooka bubblegum. Yeah.
It just like it was fine, but I didn't care. Like the plot and the setup were not especially like original or interesting to me. It's like, oh, a struggling artist in this house that happens to be haunted. Like I feel like that's been done. The scene with like the agent or whatever saying like, you need to get this work in on time, and she's like, oh yeah, don't worry, I got plenty of paintings. Like how many stories have the people been like, the artist or the writer on the phone with their agent being like, yep, I'm 100 chapters in, like don't worry, and they're like on page 1 on their computer. And to your point about the pacing, I always complain about pacing, and I feel like the pacing wasn't the problem for me. Like the whole issue, like you said, is this character kind of struggling and pretending to talk to this ghost that she doesn't really believe in, and then by the end you kind of find out that there is a ghost in the house. But like there wasn't anything to the scenes leading up to that. It was just the same thing over and over again. It didn't build on the character for me at all. It didn't build on the situation at all. It was just like, okay, she puts the record on, she drinks her wine, she gets frustrated not being able to draw. She drinks her wine, she puts on the record player. She, it was just repetitive without being layered.
One of the suggestions that I would have for this book would be a different title. I don't feel like the Me You Love in the Dark explains what it is at all. I feel like, maybe, it's kind of like a painting in an art gallery that's like maybe just like one line, like, they're trying to like, I don't know, Jackson Pollock it or whatever. And then they give it a big elaborate name that means nothing, but also add something. Maybe for a very cool painting, that's excellent. And maybe that's the spin on the book because she's a painter. But I feel like in the case of naming this comic book, The Me You Love in the Dark, it could have been something completely different. This could have been called The Nice House on the Lake. And I would have been like, excellent, beautiful title, Scotty Young. But I guess maybe that one was
Haunted
taken.
House on the Lake.
Or Haunted House on the Lake, whatever it may be. The house that the drunk girl paints in. But The Me You Love in the Dark as a name for the book didn't do it for me. And maybe that's why I had certain expectations of this book, because I was waiting for someone to love someone in the dark, and none of those things happened. This is supposed to be R-rated.
There's very little dark.
I wanted this to be R-rated, and it wasn't. It was PG at best.
Well, I'm assuming that like her and the ghost develop some sort of romantic relationship.
There we go.
And maybe get some ghost banging going on down the line.
Hey, I was holding out hope for that in the Beta Ray Bill, and that didn't work out for me.
Yeah, but that's a Marvel book, and this is it's Image, right?
I want Beta Ray Bangs' ship. That's what I want.
Beta Ray Bangs. Beta Ray. Listen, you brought it. I had Beta Ray Bill is kind of a sore subject because the entire plot of the book is that he goes on that adventure so he can bang Lady Sif.
Yeah.
Marvel wants to do and to me, that's the whole. That's the Infinity Gauntlet. That's why Thanos goes on his quest, is because he wants to bang death. So it is a Marvel trope at this point.
So you're saying that comic nerds fantasize about going on big quests in order to get some action.
That's 90% of my life. Yes. Yeah. I identify, yes.
I we talked about this in our Beta Ray episode, but like it also bothered me conversely that Lady Sif, who clearly has feelings for him and is attracted to him otherwise, is like, yeah,
shallow,
but you're kind of busted, so it's a pass for me, dog.
Yeah, Lady Sif would like. Lady and Beta Ray Bill would do what Batman won't. Like, I'm convinced of it.
And like, come on, like, think outside the box, Beta Ray. Just like throw a bed sheet over your head or something. Like, get it done.
Yeah.
Like when there's a will, there's a way. You don't need to go on an interdimensional.
Where there's a bill, there's a way.
Oh, nailed it. Oh my gosh, so good.
I'm never being invited back, am I?
No, I can't be. You're absolutely on brand with us. What are you talking about? You're elevating our game. Absolutely. Anybody have any last thoughts then on this one? I mean, it's a pretty light.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot to talk about, really.
I still like the book. I feel like I trashed it. Hey, Brandon. But I do also feel like I may end up picking up all of the single issues for this book, and they will end up at the bottom of the pile, and I'll probably end up trade weighting it anyways, and then left with a whole bunch of singles and the trade. I really do want to read it though, but I don't know. It may depend on how many books I get that week. If it's like, oh, I have 30 books, this one will be at the bottom. This week was a light week, so if it came out this week, I'd be like, okay, I'll read it.
Jay Nunya has a solid joke in the chat. Betas go through extremes to get pussy.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw it.
He's like, I'm just not going to bring it up.
No, well, leave it to me to say it. Yeah, I mean, especially considering like the last book of his that I read, I think was Middle West. I don't think I've read anything else he's done since then. And like,
I'm reading a little of Strange Academy.
And that the first issue of Middle West was like so chock full of world and character and story, and it was like, not that I'm saying like everything you do has to feel the same, but like this was the stark opposite of that, where like, I didn't really get a sense of her beyond like her frustration of her lack of motivation or lack of creativity spark. The world is just like nothing yet.
Yeah, it's
the
just
the story is
this one room almost.
The story is just like basically a spark of like, oh, there is a ghost. That's the story. So I don't know. It just felt odd to me. If it turns out to be like people start talking about how great it turns out to be, I'll read the trade, but I'm all set. So.
Wow.
So I will say, like, I've finished Middle West, and I thought that was a beautiful story, a quite long one for an indie comic that like the stuff he's been doing lately. But I thought it was a really well done series, and I'm enjoying Strange Academy. So I'm definitely willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and get at least one more issue. But like we've all kind of mentioned, I'm waiting for the tone and the plot to solidify a little bit. That's when I'll know for sure if I'm interested in where this is going. Because right now it's so amorphous, it could go in a million different directions and be a bunch of different books. So I don't know if this is a horror book or a romance love story or an oddball comedy. I don't quite know what this will be, but I certainly liked it enough that I'm going to get one more. That's pretty much the show, everybody. Jennifer, do you have? I know you just hit 1,000. Do you have anything big coming up? Obviously, you got Mars on Sunday, hopefully, because I've been missing out on some good comic talk from you.
Yeah. Last week we didn't do a show. Doing, hopefully going to do one this weekend. She's visiting someone, so like we'll see if we can make that work. The following weekend I'll be at Rose City Comic Con here in Portland, so I'm hoping that maybe either doing like a live. Thank you, Taki. Really appreciate that. So we'll see if I end up doing maybe like an edited video of. I was thinking about trying to like sneak in some creator interviews, or maybe sneak in some like, I know that there's going to be a whole bunch of people that I'll see. I think Scott, if you're still in the chat, I think that you said that you'll be at Rose City Comic Con. So, we'll see, maybe talking there. So, I also, since just getting 1,000 subscribers, I've been thinking about the edited content that I know that I need to do. So I've been working, I have like 100 ideas and it's just a matter of doing them. So hopefully some edited videos that are a lot more educational than Mars and I just being like, we think this creator likes the smell of their own farts. So we'll see if it gets smarter
that
than
is
that, folks.
you're educating.
That is true. Thank you. Thank you.
That's funny. Alec, I know we got D&D on Sunday with Big Will.
Yeah, join us for D&D on Big Will's channel Sunday nights. I am doing my best to troll him every chance I get. So
Nice.
I turned John into a giant ape last week.
Amazing. It was amazing. Was not expecting that twist.
That is excellent.
Looking forward to see where that ends out.
And I'm not the DM, and I still managed to screw with John. So
hey, I named my miniature assistant Alec. So let's just say,
and
like,
I
we're
named
both
my horse
trolling each
John.
other. And then you named your horse John. See,
If you don't mind me asking, how does Big Will take? I've seen a couple of different shows, but I'm normally when I play D&D, I don't play, I DM, and when I do play, I definitely always play chaotic neutral characters, and the DMs hate that. How does he's probably used to it DMing you guys, right?
this is his first time ever DMing. Ever. So it's perfect that Alec and I.
I'm throwing him in the deep end.
Yeah.
Basically, like messing with him a little bit here and there.
Very
Just to
nice.
see what he does. You poke the bear, see what he does.
But I always play chaotic characters when I'm a player, so it's no fun to be lawful.
Yeah, lawful's boring. That's fair. As for my channel, I'm starting my school year officially starts with Students Tuesday next week, and so I'm doing a ton of prep for school. I just am not going to have the time for edited content. So to Jennifer's point, I totally get the challenge of creating, editing, and publishing edited content. Super challenging. I will hopefully by the end of this month be back with Tuesdays doing the Omni X-Men show again with Justin, No Good Comics. So that will be some, irregular content for the channel. But other than that, and the Saturday show with my girls, the channel is a little bit light these days. Just trying to get everything career and family-wise in order for the school year.
Understandable.
Yeah, hey, you get that school year started off on the right foot. That's all that matters. Have one of the other Johns do the editing, right? I should get these Johns. It's like multiplicity. You get these Johns to work. So thanks everybody for coming by. We will see you Saturday morning, me and the girls, and I hope you have a great week. Peace.
Bye.